Understanding Dyslexia. Let's start off today's article by looking at this sentence. I saw looking at a dig god when I was it ga its taily. Now, you're probably thinking that not only is this a strange introduction, but it is also a sign that I've forgotten how to spell. Maybe I should see a doctor. Get yourself a cookie if you can work out what the sentence should be. But wait, there's a good reason for this nonsense sentence. It demonstrates what people who suffer from dyslexia might see when reading a perfectly good sentence. People who are dyslexic have a brain variation that causes problems with understanding text. They often struggle to recognize the correct order of a word's letters, or they might confuse B and D. This means that dyslexics often have to spend a lot longer reading things to understand them. This can result in problems at work or school. During exams, dyslexic students may not be able to read passages quickly enough to answer questions accurately. To make matters worse, those with dyslexia might not be diagnosed until adulthood.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to English for You. I'm Sam.
And I'm Elsie. So, Sam, what are we talking about today?
Well, we've got an interesting topic about a special kind of mental disorder called dyslexia.
Dyslexia. Okay, dyslexia 是阅读障碍。
Yeah, so obviously the name dyslexia is probably not going to ring any bells. We're probably not going to know what that means straight away. Obviously, we'll find out when we go through the article.
Yes.
But it's all to do with reading and how well we can read. And some people have a problem where they can't easily read in the way that most people can. So we'll find out how that works very soon.
Okay.
Okay, let's get going. So the article starts with, let's start off today's article by looking at this sentence. Now, here's a nice little pocket phrase to start off with. You've probably guessed its meaning already, but if you haven't, it simply means the thing to start with. Let's start off dinner with some soup, or let's start off the party with some games. It introduces the thing that we'll start with.
Start off something 代表的是开始某件事，像是刚刚 Sam 说到的 start off the party 开始这个派对，或者是 start off the meeting 开始这个会议，或者是 start off the story开始这个故事，还有这里的 start off the article 开始这个文章。
Okay, now the article then says, and it's going to be difficult for me to say this, I saw looking at a dig god when I was it gore its tally.
What are you talking about, Sam? I have no idea.
No, now hopefully you'll be able to read the article and you'll be able to see exactly what I've just read. But the article then says, now you're probably thinking that not only is this a strange introduction, but it's also a sign that I've forgotten how to spell. Maybe I should see a doctor. Get yourself a cookie if you can work out what the sentence should be.
Okay. Or is it because my English is so bad?
Yeah, that could be the case, but hopefully not. Hopefully it's just the reading, but we'll see. We'll see very shortly. But first we've got a little phrase for us to look at. It's work out. See if you can work out what it means. As a clue, Americans will be more likely to say figure out here. I don't know if you would say figure out, Elsie, but...
Yeah, I say figure out more.
Right, yeah. But most other versions of English, so British English, Australian English, Irish English, I think Singaporean English, will use work out instead. So if you're not sure what it means, work out means to think about something and decide what it means. So in the article, we say you can have a cookie if you could work out the meaning of the sentence, which means if you could correctly decide or guess what the sentence means.
But I have no idea what this sentence is about.
Okay, let's see if we can find out.
但是呢，我们来说一下 work out something 的意思，它就是理解或是想出某件事。那在美式英文当中呢，很常听到的是 figure out， 好，两个都是可以的。
Okay. But wait, there's a good reason for this nonsense sentence.
Nonsense 这个字我们来说一下它代表的是无意义的话或是胡说。所以当我们听到一个人乱讲话、胡说八道的时候，你可以跟他说 Nonsense。所以刚刚 Sam 呢说完了那句话，我可以说 Nonsense, what are you talking about? I have no idea. 我实在不知道他说的是什么。好，所以呢今天的文章开头很不一样，我们要看这句实在是无法理解的句子。So does this sentence mean anything, Sam?
Okay, well, let's see. It demonstrates what people who suffer from dyslexia might see when reading a perfectly good sentence.
Demonstrate 这个动词呢是展示、说明或是证明，所以这个句子呢其实可以说明一件事情。But first, what does suffer mean here?
Okay, yes, we need to know what suffer means. So when a person suffers from a disease or an illness, they have a disease or an illness. We can also use this word to mean that someone is having a terrible time with something. So, for example, you could be suffering because your homework is so difficult. So that's not a disease or an illness. It's just you are having a terrible time because the homework is so difficult. Another example could be Lisa suffers from a nasty skin problem that makes it itch a lot.
Suffer 这个动词呢代表的是遭受或是蒙受，那后面你当然可以接上病痛或者是一个问题。好，那如果我们说 suffer from something， 那就是患有点点点，那后方就通常加的是疾病了。所以呢 people who suffer from dyslexia， 那就是患有阅读障碍的人。
Okay. So the article then says, people who are dyslexic have a brain variation that causes problems with understanding text.Variation
这个名词呢是差异或是不同，所以我们来整理一下哦。我们刚刚一直说到的 Dyslexia 是个名词，代表阅读障碍。那 Dyslexic 它可以当作形容词，有阅读障碍的，或是当作名词，指的就是阅读障碍的人。那因为某种脑部的差异，患有阅读障碍的人在理解文字上面是有困难的。So it's difficult for them to understand text.
Yeah, but what is text? So it's a nice easy word, text. It simply means writing either printed, like on paper, or on a digital format, such as a screen. So, for example, this book has so much text, it's going to take a long time to read it all.
Text 这个名词呢是文字或是正文，那你会发现呢它是一个不可数名词哦，如果你做这样子的解释的时候。那不过呢 text 还可以是简讯、短讯，那就是 text message， 这个时候呢它就是可以数的一个名词了。
Okay.
所以呢我们可以说 I'll send you a text when I get on the bus。 好，代表呢我上公车的时候会给你传一个短讯。那这个短讯，这个 text 它就是一个 countable now here, right?
It is, yes. Okay, so we then move on to see they often struggle to recognize the correct order of a word's letters, or they might confuse B and D.
These two letters are very confusing.
Yeah, and you'll often see this with little kids when they're learning to write. They'll often write a D when they mean a B, or
right, they
vice
always
versa.
have difficulty writing B and D.
Right, yeah, difficulty recognizing them.
Yes.
Okay, so when we recognize something, we can see it and understand it. So in the article, it means that when we see letters in a word, we can understand the order that they should be in. So, for example, Fred missed the deadline for his homework because he didn't recognize how long it would take to finish.
那我们刚刚说到呢，有阅读障碍的人他没有办法辨别字母的顺序，或者是 B 跟 D 他们会分不清楚。好，有的时候特别是小朋友，他们不知道 B 跟 D 要怎么写。
Okay. Now, we also have the word confuse here. So if we confuse two or more things, then we get them mixed up.We can see in the article how we might think a B is a D or a D is a B. So if we did this, we could say that we confused letters, so as we talked about earlier. An example of this would be Tony confused the man on the bus for his friend because they looked very similar.
OK， 这边看到的 confuse 在课文里面是个动词，好，就是混淆、错认。那如果呢，你要形容一个人感到困惑的话，可以用 confused 这个形容词，就在字尾加个 d 就好了。所以呢，我们说 be confused about something， 那就是对某事感到困惑。所以我可以说I'm a little bit confused about this.
Okay. The article then says,This means that dyslexics often have to spend a lot longer reading things to understand them. This can result in problems at work or school. So here we have the pocket phrase result in. To understand this, we first need to know what result means, which will make it a lot easier. So result is the end product of something. For example, if we want to make a cake, we take our ingredients, put them all together, bake the mix in the oven, and then hopefully the result is a beautiful cake. So that's result. Baking the cake mix results in a beautiful cake.
所以呢 result in something 那就是导致造成后面会加出一个结果好所以前面会有一个原因前面会有一个 reason 后面会有一个结果说明到底这个原因造成了什么样的结果
Okay. So, moving on. During exams, dyslexic students may not be able to read passages quickly enough to answer questions accurately. So we have the word passage, and passages are short bits of writing.A passage could be a page of writing or half a page of writing. There's no exact limit. But it's important not to confuse passage with paragraph, which is easily done. I've seen that happen many times. A passage can have several paragraphs. Another example would be the teacher asked Emily to read the passage out loud for the class.
好，我们来解释一下 passage 这个名词它指的是文章的段落，但是跟 paragraph 是不一样的。好，如果是一个 passage， 它就是截取自一段的，截取自一篇的文章。那如果是 paragraph， 那就指的是第一段、第二段、第三段的那个段落。好，两个是不太相同的哦。那如果是完整的文章的话呢，英文就是 article。所以从小到大 from small to big would be paragraph, passage, and then article.
That's right, yeah, exactly. So we also have the word accurately here. So accurately is the adverb form of accurate, which means that we do something in a correct way. So if our answers to the questions are accurate, they are correct. If we answer them accurately, we answer them correctly.For example, Tom was able to accurately remember all the details in his dream.
Accurately 这个副词是准确的或是正确的，那你可以用 correctly 来说。那形容词呢，我们就把字尾的 ly 拿掉 accurate 好，它代表就是正确的。那名词也要学一下哦，名词是 accuracy。那有阅读障碍的学生呢，可能会因为没有办法以正常的速度读文章的段落，导致无法正确的回答问题。So this might cause trouble for them, right? At school.
Exactly. It might well do, yes.And to make matters worse, those with dyslexia might not be diagnosed until adulthood.
OK, 那这边呢，我们看到了今天的 Language in Focus. Let's take a look. 在今天的 Language in Focus 当中啊，我们要说到的是 not until 的用法。那第一个我们要说呢 until 这个字代表直到，那可以当连接词引导子句，或是当介系词连接某一个时间，表示某动作持续到其引导的时间为止。所以呢，像是我们可以说 We talked and talked until we both fell asleep。那代表我们一直聊天，直到我们两个都睡着为止。那第二个呢 until 会搭配 not 来使用，好，这个是很常见的。那意思就是直到点点点才点点点，表示呢某一个动作直到 until 所表示的时间才开始。So for example, I had trouble sleeping last night. I couldn't fall asleep.Until 1 a.m. this morning 代表我直到凌晨1点才睡着。那再来呢，第三个要注意的是我们也可以搭配分裂句型哦，也就是 it 加上 be 动词，加上 not until， 再加上 that 以及一个名词子句来强调语气。所以刚才的例句也可以说成It wasn't until 1 a.m. this morning that I finally fell asleep.
Okay.So, we then have another phrase to look at, but first we should probably go back to see the last sentence of the article so we can remember what we were talking about there. So it said, to make matters worse, those with dyslexia might not be diagnosed until adulthood. So we started off with the sentence there with a phrase, to make matters worse. So in some cases, if you want to talk about things becoming worse, then we can use this little phrase. However, we can only use this if we've already mentioned something that is bad.So dyslexia is bad because it makes reading difficult, but even worse is that it isn't usually diagnosed until adulthood. There we have one bad thing and then something else that means that it's even worse.
Okay, to make matters or to make things worse 代表就是更糟的事，所以带出更糟的结果，更糟的内容。那这里呢，我们还看到一个字很重要哦，是 diagnose， 它代表的是诊断。那在课文里面呢，你看到的是被动。好，那像是呢，我们可以说诊断某人有某个疾病，那就是 diagnose somebody with something。那被动它也是很常见的，那就是 be diagnosed with something. So for example, she was diagnosed with the flu last month. 她上个月被诊断患有这个流感。那我们刚刚说呢，患有阅读障碍的孩子，他们可能没有办法被诊断出来，直到 adulthood， 就直到他是成人阶段的时候才会被诊断出来。
Okay, so that kind of brings us to the end of this day. But we do have a chat question.
Yes.
We do. And I think this is one that you're going to be able to answer better than me because it involves two different languages, one that I'm not so familiar with. So
English and Chinese.
Yes.
Yeah.
So not much point you asking me this question. So I'll ask you. How do you think dyslexia might affect reading English and Chinese differently?
Okay, I think in Chinese there are so many different characters with different strokes.
Okay.
So people with dyslexia might have trouble recognizing them,
Okay.
reading them, or writing them.
Yeah, I was going to ask about writing. Because
Yeah, especially writing.
Yeah, because I know in Chinese it's very important as to the order you write the strokes, right?
That's the difficult part. Yeah, what about in English? What do you think?
In English, I think mostly to do with reading. I think actually both my dad and my brother are dyslexic.
Really?
So I know a little bit about dyslexia. I don't have it myself, but I know a little bit about dyslexia through them. And yeah, I know that my brother, when he was at school and university, got longer periods of time to do exams and things because it took him longer to read tests.
What about the sounds in English? Do they have more trouble recognizing the sounds?
So. No, I, from what I can tell, they seem to be okay with listening.
Okay.
It seems to just affect their
reading
and also their spelling.
Yeah,
they don't always know how to spell fairly obvious words sometimes.
So especially their reading, spelling, and writing.
Yeah, I would say so.
I see. Cool. Okay, so different languages, both, the people with dyslexia might have trouble in both languages.
Yeah, so just because one uses letters and is phonetic and the other uses characters and isn't phonetic doesn't make a difference. It affects people with both languages.
Yes, every language, I believe.
I would guess so.
Okay, so that's all the time we had for today.
It is, yeah, and we look forward to talking about the next part of this topic tomorrow. I'm Sam.
I'm Elsie. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Vocabulary Review. Suffer. After receiving treatment for a while, Kate no longer suffered from a sore back. Text. Larry got coffee on his newspaper, and now some of the text is hard to read. Recognize. I didn't recognize that the store was closed, even though the lights were off and the door was locked. Confuse. My mom confused salt with sugar when she cooked the soup, so it tasted completely wrong. Passage. Please read the passage and answer the questions about it on your answer sheet. Accurately. I tried to accurately describe the man who robbed me to the police officers.
智慧小补帖
Nonsense. Demonstrate. Variation. Diagnose.